name's John Hall. I'm the co-chair with Lyra Filippini of Yes on Measure O for our downtown, our future. And welcome tonight to the real story of Measure O. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you coming out on a Thursday night. We'll have a great presentation by Lyra, and then we can have questions from the floor and discussion. So we want to really give a full airing here to what the measure is about, so that's very clear understanding that we have about it. And we also want to encourage you to help the campaign. Volunteer to have a yard sign in your yard. Donate if you can afford to. Any amount is fine. If you want to go out and canvass for us or do texting, love to have that too. There's a donation jar at the back, but you can also do it online. And speaking of donations, before I really get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about the people who are the No on O people. What's interesting is the big donations that they have received. They have received $67,500 in donations of $2,500 or more. That is 76% of all the donations they've received have been big money donations. And I'm not even counting the ones that are, $1,000, $1,500 or whatever. And an interesting number of them are from the Dream Inn, the people that want to develop the luxury hotel on Front Street, Swenson developers, and on it goes. So the Seaside Corporation, what do they give? $12,500. Do I hear $13,000? There's something wrong with that picture for democracy, I think. I don't know about you, that's just my personal opinion. If the Seaside Corporation wants a parking garage, they have land that they own right next to the boardwalk where they can build their own parking garage. They can do it, folks. So I don't mean to start out talking about money, because what we're really here about is Measure O, and it's a really important thing for our community and for our city. One thing I want to say before I get started any further with it is do check out the flyers for Citizen Jane, which is this wonderful film on city planning that we're going to screen at the Resource Center for Nonviolence on October 6th at 7 o'clock. So really an interesting film to see. And we hope to turn out for that. And before I introduce Lyra, we're going to say this over and over again, but I'm going to say it to start. What does it mean to vote yes or to vote no on Measure O? And it's easy to get confused because some people think, oh, well, they're trying to stop a parking structure, and so I should vote no. But that's not what's on the ballot. What's on the ballot is yes, keeps the library where it is. Yes, keep the library where it is. Yes, keep the farmer's market where it is. Yes, build affordable housing on 8 city-owned parking lots downtown. That's a yes. So I just want to be clear on that so that when you talk to people, you can be clear about what a yes vote or a no vote means. I am so pleased, and I tell you, one of the great things about this whole campaign is that we feel like we build community by the campaign that we're conducting. And I feel that way tonight, and I feel that way with the people who are all grassroots volunteers who have worked so hard over the past year to actually get the 5,000 signatures, get us on the ballot. It's simply been amazing. It's going to continue to be amazing. We're going to win in November with your help. And Lyra is going to tell you a lot about the measure, and then we'll have questions and discussion. So Lyra Filippini, the co-chair of Yes on Measure O.
so many friendly faces and some new faces, so I would love to meet anyone I don't already know. And really, for me, this has been a building community experience. The people that I'm working really closely with, a lot of them I hadn't met before this, and I can say that honestly, it feels like family at this point. Okay, so Jill already went over the basic main 4 points, right? So Measure O, if we vote yes on Measure O, it renovates the downtown library right where it is, at the Civic Center. It keeps the farmers market, really secures them a permanent location where they no longer are being threatened to, with this inevitable move that they've had holding over their heads for a really long time. We would be dedicating and reserving 8 city-owned surface parking lots so that anything that the city or developers want to build on them, they can only build 100% affordable housing above the ground level. And the last thing is that we would be preventing a brand new massive parking structure on not only Lot 4, home of the farmers market, but also on these other particular 8 owned city lots downtown. It is important to note that when Measure O passes, the particular proposal that the city has been moving forward for a couple of years now, actually a number of years, would no longer go through on Lot 4. So we passed Measure S in 2016, countywide ballot, and the campaign for Measure S was fundamentally around renovations. It was to repair, upgrade, improve, and modernize our branch libraries throughout the county. Now, all the other ones have been moving forward in their current location, except for a small Live Oak annex that had nothing to do with renovation whatsoever, and that's a whole other story. But even the ones that have been rebuilt and not just renovated were done so in their current location where they stood for a long time. What the city has decided that they would like to do is to use our Measure S money and basically move the farmers market from where it's been for about 2 decades or more, cut down the trees there or try to save 1 or 2, it sounds like, from their brand new arborist report, and build an 8-story structure that consists of 123 units of affordable housing plus a manager's unit, a massive parking structure, garage, a brand new library, because they've been demolishing the one that we've had in its location for over 100 years, though the location has been there for 100 years, not the actual library. The library was built in 1969, this particular one. And they will also be including commercial in this project. This project is 8 stories, and it's about 84 feet tall. It's very large. So one of the things that is less than advantageous about what the city's current plan is that they use a tremendous amount of space. Volumetrically, it's actually the largest volume of space in their entire project for the parking garage. So what you're seeing there is the blocking of this, 8-story project that the city would like to move forward. The blue is the affordable housing, the gray is the parking garage, the yellow on the left, but the orange on the right is the library, and then the orange on the left is the commercial space. So the garage is a very large part of the project, but right now they have rebranded it from the mixed-use project to the library affordable housing project. What Measure O specifically does is it says we'd be renovating the library where it is, so the yellow part would not be able to go through in this location. The commercial would also not be putting 2 stories of new commercial on this location, and the garage would not be built on this location. However, Section 4C of Measure O specifically says that affordable housing can share space with the farmers market on Lot 4, and there's a lot of ways that we could conceive of doing that, but that would be a community process. So one of the most important things to understand about this is that a lot of people are pushing for this parking, saying that we're actually really going to need it. But what's being overlooked is this 2019 study that the city actually commissioned for $100,000 by Nelson Nygaard. And what the study found is that over 30%, even in the peak of peak times, over 30% of our off-street parking means in a parking garage, not on the side of the street, over 30% is vacant, available. And actually, in some of those facilities, there's more than 50% available. And this is once again during peak times. And what they concluded was that, we need to have our best utilization is about 90%. That's what parking experts strive for. Otherwise, you just have a surplus and you're not doing anything with it, and we're trying to move away from car culture. 90% is about optimum. And what the conclusion of the study was is that, we have a significant surplus capacity, even with the loss of some of these other lots and the incoming of new development. We have a massive capacity. So a quote from Patrick Seaman, who's actually the leader of the parking study: Santa Cruz has a parking management problem, not a parking supply problem. And in the study itself, the following quote: modernize parking management and better align parking prices to the cost of building and maintaining the system. So don't build new structures. You need to make sure that people who are looking for parking know how to find it. We need better wayfaring signs, so big signs that tell you where to find the parking. We need to have much better employee and resident parking programs. City's been taking baby steps on trying to improve their system for that. But, Rick Longinotti, who's the expert on this, can tell you, they've only made little baby steps. We need to do much more to better manage our parking supply. So one of the other problems with this, idea of this parking garage and the parking study is that how are we going to afford to build this garage? This is a massive question that we're facing right now. Because what they're showing is that this is coming straight from the city's own reports, that from 2004 to 2018, so this is pre-pandemic, right? So this has nothing to do with parking capacity, having any sort of influence from the pandemic. This is pre-pandemic. Up through 2018, what you're seeing is the green, the parking supply has been increasing, how much is available. And in red, it's been decreasing, actually. So where are we going to find this money to actually afford to build a parking garage in the first place? Especially if the city is saying that it will come from the parking district. I'm pretty much explaining the captions, so if you can see the red line, you can see that it actually was pretty level and then dipped, spiked just a tiny, tiny bit in 2017 and then dropped pretty dramatically. And overall, the difference between the red dot there in 2018 and the green dot, right? So the parking, the occupied spaces compared to the total number of available spaces is about 1,500. So losing a couple of parking, surface parking lots to build housing developments is actually not creating a parking supply problem. We have a tremendous amount. So how are we going to pay, if it's supposed to come out of the parking district, how are we going to pay for the parking garage? Is this going to end up coming out of the general fund eventually? And also, how can we build the housing if it's on top of a parking garage we can't pay for? The red squares represent 8 city-owned parking lots. These 8 city-owned parking lots would be reserved for 100% affordable housing. We can see that the city right now is willing to sell some of our publicly owned lots to build a luxury hotel. 2 of those lots are actually in Measure O, so Measure O would fundamentally stop the hotel taking up public land. A hotel can absolutely be built on privately owned land. So it also would yield, with these 8 lots, it would yield conservatively 305 to 433 affordable housing units. John worked very hard on doing the math on all that. And that is not including Lot 4. So the possibility of still building affordable housing on Lot 4 is not included in this estimate. And the green square there is Lot 4, showing that it is very well placed centrally for a public event space. Okay, I'm going to read it. Lot 4 housing faces delays from complicated interface with other project elements, a parking garage with uncertain bond funding, and a $15 million plus shortfall of Measure S bond funding for the mixed-use library. The city has applied to a state library grant for $10 million and they did not get it. That library grant, if you read the code from the state, is very specifically for critical infrastructure maintenance. And our renovation actually would fit that perfectly. Building a new structure does not. So the city can develop 150 or more affordable units just on Lot 7. What you're seeing is kind of washed out on the screen, I apologize for that. It's just a Google Maps shot of Lot 7, which is, you know, a pretty fair-sized lot, but it is smaller than Lot 4. So to demonstrate that we absolutely can build more housing on Lot 7 than what they're currently planning for Lot 4, Jeff Oberdorfer from UCF, the University of San Francisco Architecture Studio, had his architecture class actually do very specific plans using all of the city's available code, regulations, restrictions, to put together plans for what could you build on Lot 7. So a quick snapshot of comparing mostly the housing element between the city's proposed mixed-use project and Measure O. So with the city's project, it would be 123 affordable housing units with one manager's unit. With Measure O, most downtown city-owned lots are reserved or slated for 100% affordable housing, and that's 305 to 430 plus. And that does not even include the potential for the housing on Lot 4. With the city's proposal, it costs roughly $107 million. Actually, that keeps kind of going up, most of which has not been secured. So there's a lot of talk from the city about this kind of being a bird in the hand. You know, we've been planning this for so long, and it's true, they have been planning it for so long, but it's not true that it's a bird in the hand. The way that these processes work is that once they've created like a general plan and application and a design, it goes through community meetings, a series of community meetings, then city council hearings. And often, that community meeting is the first thing that people really hear about. We've been hearing about this for a long time because they've been trying to push the parking garage on us since the early 2000s. But the first community meeting that the city had was actually about a week ago. So, and they have to go through these community meetings and get what's called entitlement before they can even apply for the majority of the funding for the housing. So they have not gone through any of this part of the process yet, and I think that's really important for people to understand. The housing in Measure O does not depend on, you know, either funding the garage or the library on that location or the commercial, and also doesn't depend on those things being built, right? So this would be a big construction site for a long time. If we need affordable housing, you know, wouldn't it be better to actually move forward with an affordable housing project that's not connected to an unfunded garage that would still have to be built first before the housing, because it's basically the foundation, and then before it actually is move-in ready. You know, that'll take quite a long time. And something that was pointed out to us by Rick Longinati, who did very careful research on this, is that a one-bedroom unit, which is bigger than a single-room occupancy or studio unit, so a one-bedroom unit can be built for every 2 car spaces not constructed in a parking garage, because of all of the circulation space, all of this extra space gets put into these parking garages. And that's pretty significant. 2 car spaces in a parking garage equals a 1-bedroom apartment. Yeah, so now I'm going to talk about the farmers market for a little bit. As we know, it's thrived in its current location on Lot 4 for decades. And the city, in their own downtown plan, you know, specifically say, this is a quote, "Open spaces within downtown Santa Cruz should have value and meaning. They should be carefully located where people want to be and in locations that take advantage of the unique resources, heritage, and traditions of the community." We agree. We know that the farmers market and other events like the antique fair, all kinds of cultural events, have worked beautifully in the current location. We have literally developed community roots there along with the trees. Measure O would secure permanence and no more threat of moving for the farmers market and these other events right on Lot 4. saving all the heritage trees, and would activate downtown with more events. The farmers market wants a permanent infrastructure, and we think that would be great. They want to actually make it more of a town square or commons, just like we do. So location is very important. Not just our traditions and our heritage and our experience building community in certain locations, but also the actual physical aspects of those locations. Lot 4 is the largest, most central in downtown, and only southwest-facing sunny lot for a commons, town square, for events, farmers market, and whatnot. Lot 7 is the lot that the city has been mostly focusing on, along with the farmers market, who's been facing this, threat of moving for a long time. And Lot 7 is smaller. It's still pretty big, but it is smaller. And it's on a heavily trafficked urban street. It's right on the main bus route on Front Street, which is actually a great location for housing because we're trying to move more towards public transportation and less towards cars. However, it is really not a good place to have a whole bunch of people trying to gather and with children at events right next to a very, very traffic-burdened street. So this is a picture of the model that's actually, in the back there that Russell Boucher made to scale using Google Earth as well as the heights of buildings downtown. Not only the buildings that are there, but the buildings that are already in the pipeline. So all the really starkly white buildings, those are the ones that have not yet been built but are in the pipeline. And you can see near the Red Church, that big white one over there, there's two near it, but you can see to the left of the Red Church, that's Lot 4, where they have the mixed-use project planned and where we think we should have community event space in Town Square. The downtown library has been in the location it is for over 100 years. It was designed, not this particular one, but the original was designed by Carnegie to actually be part of the heart of the Civic Center. And so where it is, it's right next to the Civic Auditorium, and it's right next to the City Hall. And that blends education with art, culture, and governance. We need people to be around City Hall a little bit more and get more involved, at least that's what I think. And one of the things that, is kind of being spread around out there is a lot of focus on things like, oh, the library has asbestos. The library has plumbing problems. Yes, we know that. That's why we voted for Measure S. That's why we want our money to be put towards a renovation. And Jason Architecture actually did a beautiful job of putting together a renovation and had less money to kind of design it around, much less. They were working at about $25 million is what they were kind of trying to design it around. And now the city's plan for just the library portion of the mixed-use project is $42 million. So imagine what we could have designed if we started designing something at the $42 million price tag. But the renovation itself, that Jason Architecture did put together, even at that lower threshold of funds, does include a brand new orientation with wraparound windows. So the entrance would open up onto the views of City Hall. Those Spanish courtyards are gorgeous. It would have brand new HVAC, new electrical, new plumbing, and a new roof specifically designed to hold a full photovoltaic array, so that's solar power. So they haven't budgeted in the actual solar power array. However, they have created infrastructure specifically to be able to hold the full array. So when we say renovation, we mean like a real renovation. This isn't just a little rehab. We are talking brand new layout, completely brand new layout on the inside. If you've been into the library recently, you know what it looks like when you walk in. This is what it would look like when you walk in from the renovation. So very, very different than it is right now. And I think a lot of people aren't quite, or a lot of our opponents aren't quite giving it the real chance that it deserves. Because when they point at things like asbestos and plumbing, and we know that would all be fixed, we're moving away from thinking about like, what can we really have? And it's been shown to us what we can have. So we're trying to amplify that and make sure people know that there's beautiful renovation plans and we can move forward towards the next step in the process. So it would also include computer stations, teen room, life literacies room, meeting rooms, quiet reading rooms, genealogy, and a lot more. This is kind of showing the line of sight and the pathways through the first floor of the renovation plans. So if you can see the little red eye kind of to the left, I don't know if you guys can see that, I hope you can. So that's basically the line of sight from where the library staff would be. They can see everything throughout that first floor. The same thing goes with the second floor. So a little quick just comparison with what they're planning for the mixed-use project is that there would only be staff present on the first and second floors. The third floor mezzanine and roof deck would have no staff present. They're saying they'd have something like CCTV, and hopefully someone will be monitoring that. I'm not quite sure. And it's also a long and narrow design, when this one is much more open and you can see everything. It also has bottom right, if you can see that bright green square, next to the lighter, giant green section. That's all the children's area. So the children's area in the renovation plans actually opens up onto their own dedicated children's patio and garden, opposed to with the mixed-use project where the children's area is on one side of the ground floor of a long, narrow building that then the only outdoor space is a patio on the third floor. So we think renovation is much better for families. There's also another, the top right bright green square would be the outdoor patio for the community room, which would be available for after hours. So the community room, public bathrooms, and a kitchen with this beautiful community room patio, all right there together and separate from the children's patio. So I just want to talk a little bit about why are all of the environmental groups currently supporting Measure O? Well, there are a number of reasons. 4 key reasons. One is deprioritizing unneeded parking garage and really incentivizing car culture. That one I think is relatively obvious to everyone, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The second one is that Measure O prioritizes large old trees and promotes an urban forest, something that we're actually largely lacking here in Santa Cruz. And some of that is due to the earthquake, but there are a lot of reasons. It also reduces embodied carbon to go with renovation instead of building a brand new structure. So instead of demolishing Total Fitness and demolishing the current library and building this giant new structure. And we're going to talk about embodied carbon more in a second. And the last one is people-centered urban planning. You know, we need, for a healthy environment, we need people who are engaged. And studies have shown in the social sciences that people are much more engaged with their local government if they have an attachment to things in the community that they have already been experiencing together. So the farmer's market, where it is, the library, where it is, improvements to both of those things engages the community spirit more, brings people together, and we can all work together to move forward with better planning for our future so that we can survive here. So what is embodied carbon? I actually was relatively new to this topic, though it kind of made sense to me intrinsically. But we've had a number of urban planners and architects who specialize in environmental construction really kind of school us on what this is and why it's so important. So I'm going to read a quote from the Carbon Leadership Forum on what embodied carbon is. In the building industry, embodied carbon refers to the greenhouse gas emissions arising from the manufacturing, transportation, installation, maintenance, and disposal of building materials. So that's different than the actual energy use of a building once it's there. That's why it's embodied. Okay, so this bar on the left, the one that's like much taller than all the other ones, that says large, heavy buildings. Next one says small, light buildings, and the one on the right says renovations. And this is directly out of the Carbon Leadership Forum. And they did a very in-depth study and are very focused on embodied carbon so that we can actually survive. So the black, or the darkest color, is the foundation and structure. So that is what takes the vast majority of carbon and puts it into our atmosphere during our urbanization. And if you can see, the renovations has no black, and ours wouldn't either, because we would be maintaining the foundation and the basic superstructure. Urban forest and how important it is. We all know intrinsically that trees and plants scrub our air. They help pull carbon out of the atmosphere. But they also reduce urban heat island effect. They provide crucial insect, avian, and animal habitat, which is really in decline in our urbanized world. It's actually really important that they still have some place to live in our urbanized world. They also reduce pavement maintenance, which I was really surprised to learn. So there's something about the shading that actually prolongs the life of pavement, especially if you've given the tree enough room to grow. And overall improve the quality of life, and this is from the Environmental Protection Agency itself. From a study called The Future of Large Old Trees in Urban Landscapes. I'm just going to read the quote to you, or both of them. Large old trees have been defined as keystone ecological structures because, relative to their size, they are disproportionate providers of resources crucial to other species. The decline of large old trees in modified landscapes is of global conservation concern. Once large old trees are removed, they are difficult to replace in short term due to typically prolonged time periods needed for trees to mature. We need to do everything we can to preserve our large old trees. And if Jillian Greenside was here, she would have a lot to say about that. She helped create, our heritage tree ordinance. And that ordinance specifically says that you have to try your best, and there's stringent regulations around this, to design any new development around heritage trees, large old trees. And there are places in the world who do that. It doesn't stop the development in those places, they build around the trees. Okay, so we've reached the end of our presentation. And we will be going to questions and discussion shortly. But just to reiterate, the four main things that a yes vote or Measure O does is it fully renovates our downtown library where it is, don't demolish, renovate, fulfill the intent of Measure S, secure permanence for the farmer's market where it thrives, don't displace to an inferior location, keep it sunny, keep the trees. Reserve 8 city-owned lots for 100% affordable housing instead of a luxury hotel or combining it with an unfinanced garage. And avoid building a massive concrete parking structure. Don't spend our money on an unnecessary garage. Thank you, and John.
Judy is going to do that, Judy Pisano, who is deserving of a round of applause as our event coordinator extraordinaire. So, we can have a great thorough discussion. You have one question over here, Judy. Okay, that's a great question. The question, in case the microphone is not working well enough, is how is it possible to build 100% affordable housing on city-owned lots? Okay? And you go into housing and it can get very complicated very quickly. But the short answer is, first thing to say is that the city has already done this. That there are a series of places, city-owned property, Pacific Station South is going to be developed very soon. So already the city has demonstrated that that's possible, and if they were to follow through on Lot 4, they would be using a city-owned lot. Why is it possible? One of the most important, expensive components of building housing is the land. Absolutely. So when you put city-owned land to the purposes of building affordable housing, you, right at the beginning, cut the cost by 30%, 35%. So that is a big feature of it. That then gets piggybacked onto with affordable housing credits, tax credits, and the city's affordable housing trust fund and other funds like that. So those are the mechanisms that make it possible to do this. And as Lyra showed with Lot 7, we've done a proof of concept for that particular lot that shows how you can get, more housing on that, more affordable housing on that lot alone than on Lot 4.
John?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if she's also talking about, like, how does that legally work? Is that what you're asking?
How what?
How does it legally
They
work?
always say a developer is not going to develop it if it's more than 15% or 20% affordable.
Well, that's certainly, let's go back to that, because certainly a developer, and you see this time and time again with private-owned lots, where they are legally required by city ordinance now to have 20% affordable housing, but they would much rather build market rate housing that they can sell for more. And so they try to reduce that, and indeed they take advantage of density bonuses. Lyra is the great expert on this. To try to actually reduce the number of units or the proportion of affordable housing. So there's, I think, one of the projects going in on Front Street or Laurel, they reduced it, it's about, what, 11% now?
Yeah, the state density bonus law allows them to add a huge amount of extra density plus height, and all that is allowed to be market rate. And so it's only the base density that's 20%, and all that extra is usually not affordable market rate housing. So this would be 100% affordable housing, and it's because we're creating a land use measure. So it's on these specific lots, that is the land use designation, is that we can still have anything on the ground level, really, or below ground level, though I think that would be inadvisable in the floodplain. But it could be parking on the ground level, it could be commercial on the ground level, but anything above that, it has to be 100% affordable.
I think one key issue there also is this is public land, and so we should be using it for the public good. Okay, another question?
Hi. At the other night, the city council meeting, I think they asked, will this affordable housing be prioritized for local residents? Are we actually solving our housing crisis by building this? And they kind of fudged on that. I guess there's laws that they can't really prioritize it for locals, so there's that.
Okay. Kurt, yeah.
You talked about a $10 million grant that the city was denied. If they renovate, can they get that money?
Yes, so the city still thinks that they have a great chance with the exact same application, really, the same project for the second year of funding. But I have read the actual Senate bill that was passed, that code comes out of, that created the grant money that the state now has, their infrastructure. It's called Critical Infrastructure Maintenance Grant. And so it says it right there in the name, but I have read it very carefully, and there's a number of criteria, and specifically the projects that get prioritized literally specifically says asbestos abatement, new HVAC, new roof, all the things that would be in the renovation. So there will be one more year of funding applications, and we believe that the city would be much better suited to actually get that $10 million grant if they applied for the renovation instead of clearly what failed with their application for the mixed-use project library.
Lonnie.
Maybe I can speak loud. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I had a couple questions. One, I was at the meeting last Wednesday, and they talked about the cost of the renovation being $42, and then the new multi-Taj garage, that I like to call it, being $41. But from what I had heard from someone at the farmer's market, actually the renovation would be a lot less expensive. So I'm not sure why they gave what seems like misinformation or different information. So it'd be good to have a link or something that actually cites the cost of the renovation versus because what they're saying is it would be more to renovate. The other question I have is, sorry about that, housing connected. Oh, that you can't build on anything less than a half an acre, which seems ridiculous to me, but that was something they said.
Well, the cost question is really crucial, and they keep cooking the books. I mean, they dropped the price that they were quoting for the mixed-use project library by about 15 million in their presentation on Wednesday. Why? Because they only included construction costs, not soft costs. Well, the total cost is construction costs plus soft costs, and that's in their proposal, 42.5 million. I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but there is our impact report supplement, and we're going to make it available on our website.
It is available.
It is available. I'm not sure that the link is there for people yet, though.
It is.
Is it? Okay. So the impact supplement, and here's the thing, they did yet another bait and switch. They kept advertising the price of their library as the base cost, but promising this rooftop patio and
Solar.
and solar. And so they had one price that they were telling people it was and another price that it is. The other thing that they did, and this, I mean, I know it's getting into the weeds, is that they did a cost escalation on the renovation and other adjustments to it at a much higher percentage rate than for the new construction without any explanation. I just can't help but feel that they cooked the books.
I'd like to add one thing. They keep not including the demolition or removal and disposal of the current library in their cost model for their proposal to build a brand new library. That's a very expensive part of what should be considered part of that project. We're talking about the library, right? So the library demolition, removal, and disposal should be part of that cost model, and it's very expensive.
What do we do when we leave here tonight to make sure that O passes? And then, you know, besides having a yard sign, and you know, what can we do? And I know that Russ and others have produced a lot of wonderful material, but maybe more, I don't know. And then also, this is my first chance of really getting to look at this model. And I hope it's not too off topic to ask, what is going on with all of that, those big white buildings by the river? How did they get by the Coastal Commission or not? You know, the salmon people and all that. So those are my two questions.
Well, I'm going to answer your second question first. It's actually been a bit of a saga on a number of these developments that have already been approved. Some of them have already been permitted, but yet haven't broken ground. So this stuff is coming. But, you know, at first, the local coastal program looked like it was at odds with some of these developments, but there were ways to get around that when, you know, people try to bring up the fact that they actually have to like change stuff to the levee, they have to do all kinds of stuff for some of these developments, they still were able to get through. And, you know, some of those actually have, like what was brought up earlier, only 11% affordable housing, you know, in the end because of the density bonus. So all these extra units that were allowed to be market rate. But just a little not fun fact is that if you are interested in coastal resources and protecting the riparian corridor along the river and environmental impacts, it would be a good thing to pay attention to what the city is currently planning for what they're calling the downtown plan expansion. So currently they're planning 15 and 17-story buildings right along the river south of Laurel. So downtown plan expansion, if you want a reminder on that, find me afterwards and I can write it down for you or something. how to get involved, like you said, yard signs, but really, endorse us, all that kind of stuff, but talk to your friends and neighbors. And I think that this is really important with it. This is for community. And so we want to like truly listen to people's concerns and their opinions if they are currently a no on Measure O. We need to build communities, so we shouldn't make assumptions that people who are, no on O are wanting bad things for the community. Actually, most of them want really good things for the community. We just are looking at different details, and we're looking at different facts.
My name's Bob Morgan, and I try to get folks to volunteer for Measure O, yes I know. And every Saturday at 9:30 in the morning, we meet at London Nelson, and we distribute packets of turf, we call them neighborhood turf, which you can walk. They're sometimes smaller and sometimes larger, and we ask folks to walk door to door and talk to folks about Measure O. The other thing I'd like to add is tonight, we have, I think, plenty of flyers. Is that right, Susan? Yep. So tonight, before you leave, take 50 flyers with you and give them to your friends. And say, hey, I attended this meeting. This is why I'm voting yes on Measure O. Have a flyer. That can help us in a very practical way. Thank you.
I've done some of that canvassing. We are going to win if we get people educated on what it means.
And you don't have to donate over 12 grand like the developers are doing on the other side. You could donate $10, everything really helps.
So I'd like to take like 3 questions in a row so that we can get more voices here, and then we can try to answer them. We got Amy, and then Pauline, and Joe. And all right. So Amy?
I don't know if I need that, but I guess I could use it if you want me to.
Let's see if it works.
Okay, thank you. I just have detailed questions that I can sort of talk to people and about questions that I hear from them. So you're saying that the 42 million that they're talking about is just for the library portion?
That's right.
Not the parking, and then the total cost is 107 million is what they're saying.
Something like that.
But that's not including the demolition of the old library.
That's right.
What did you say the cost was to renovate?
Well, that's a moving target. The cost of renovation is a moving target because they've lost $2 or $3 million in inflation since they actually got the plans from Jason. Their estimate was for 27 million. That's what they were budgeted as. And so the escalation means that it's 30 million, and then they've added in these other factors that frankly I don't understand.
Yeah,
But can we just take some quick questions so we get...
I think she had another.
Yeah, the more there.
Well, I just was wondering about, I'll ask you later, but I was wondering about the Capitola Library, that one that's brand new. Was that where the old Capitola Library was?
Yeah.
Over on a wharf,
Yeah.
the wharf road? Okay, gotcha. Okay, thank you. I'll ask the other ones later.
Okay. All right, so we had Pauline.
Okay, I just want to say that I now canvassed 5 precincts, and I've overwhelmingly met people who are yes, but I've met a lot of people who do not know what this ballot measure is. And as far as I'm concerned, if I see a no sign, I'm not going to waste my time there. My time is more fruitful talking to the people who don't yet know, don't yet understand, even though they may have heard of this project and not like it, that they have to vote yes on oath.
Well said, well said.
Joe?
Some of my best friends are opponents of Measure O, and one of the big arguments I get, and I'm not sure what the answer is, I hope there's a well-defined answer, but it's, okay, you renovate the old library, then we're going to be like after the earthquake, where's all the stuff go? It's going to be in other storefronts all over town for 2 years or whatever, so how do we finesse that?
Well, the answer to that is very simple. When they built that library, they shouldn't have done it. They tore down the Carnegie Library, and they had a temporary library location for 2 years. We did that during the pandemic. We basically had the library on very low services. We want full services, but there are unfortunately, a lot of empty storefronts on Pacific Avenue, and we can easily have the library there temporarily while it's being renovated at the Civic Center. That is the answer. That was the plan in Jason. Elise.
Thank you. Yeah, Pauline actually said one of the things that I wanted to say. I've done hundreds of thousands of doors as a canvasser, and I used to train people how to do it, and I really feel that this campaign is going to be won at the door and in conversations. And so a couple things. First of all, thank you for saying that, Pauline, because if people appear to be an adamant no, better waste your breath with somebody who's a maybe and try to turn them into a yes. And that's a canvassing skill that can be developed. But quick things about talking. I really feel that we need talking points printed up. Some of us do better in print. I know everything's
We have that. Come to London Nelson at 9:30 on Saturdays. We have the talking points.
Okay. I'm not necessarily able, I just wanted to say I'm job hunting and stuff, and I'm going to try to squeeze in. I'm very broke from all the canvassing that I've done for years and years, so I just want to say, this campaign is going to be won also by keeping it simple. So when you give your compelling rap to your maybe or your yes person at the door or at the farmer's market or whatever, make sure it's compelling and then a minute. And then give them time to answer, and then make sure your answer is really directed to what their specific objection or question is. Because I just want to say, most of the people in here are pretty brainy and they're eggheads, and there's tons of information here. So it's real important to listen to what they want to know, and then really direct it. And that's why having the printed talking points. And I just wanted to also say, the students, I'd like to hear how we're going to outreach to the students and how does the new districting affect this is a promotional campaign to be a big money campaign. So we're going to do it by short, compelling conversations. And how do we reach, tack on question, how do we reach the students? And can you just talk briefly, if it's appropriate, about the new districting and how that affects the student vote here?
Well, thank you, Elise. I think those are separate political questions from the measure. And it's certainly the case that the district elections are very important for Measure O. And you should be informed about them. And two of the candidates, one in each district, have endorsed Measure O. Hector Marin in District 4 and Sean Maxwell in District 6.
And Joy Schenfeldecker is running for mayor.
And Joy running for mayor. So if you want to support candidates that support Measure O, those are the three. The question about UC Santa Cruz I won't get into right now, but I'd be glad to talk to you about. Other questions at the back there? Yep, you.
Yeah. Is it true that the big hotel where the community credit union is going to be, is sold to them, that their parking depends on this parking structure?
So that's a really great question. Right now we're hearing murmurs that they may be forced to include parking. We're not really sure. I won't believe it until I see it in the actual application, the formal application and the plan set. Right now the formal application and the plan set show that it would be 228 rooms, luxury hotel rooms, right? And 15 parking spaces. It would be for their valet service, mostly, to nearby parking garages. So I believe that your question, the answer would be a yes. We would be subsidizing parking for that as well as other developments. And the way that our current code, both locally and state code, are structured, it is set up for us to subsidize some sort of parking program for affordable housing units, but not for market rate housing, not for luxury hotels, or any of the other things that the city would like to do downtown or on our publicly owned lots. So Measure O, if passed, would not allow those lots to, be sold to this hotel developer.
That's lot 11 and lot 27 there. And I want to say, I just figured out something when it dawned on me, that the cost of donating $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 to the No on O campaign is much, much less than the cost of building one parking stall in a hotel. So for the developers, Barry Swenson and Owen Lawler in particular, this is chump change, doling out $10,000 or $15,000. So.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
About the urban tree aspect of Measure O, is it more than keeping the trees at the farmer's market? Is there going to be an expansion of urban tree planting that this is bringing forth? What is the urban tree part of it?
Well, the urban tree part of it is that it's better to keep the larger trees where they are and the mature trees rather than cutting them down and putting in young trees that take a long time to get to their point where they can really suck in the carbon. You have a great idea about an urban forest, and it should definitely be pursued further, but it's not part of this initiative.
Yeah, it would be a community process to see what happens on Lot 4 specifically, and I think most of the community would say, let's have more greenery. And one of the things that they have found when I went deep into the urban forest research is that you don't want to plant all your trees in your urban environment all at once. You actually really need, for the health of the root system, because they are all connected by mycelium and they put off chemicals and they actually they communicate to each other. And it's really important that you have different species and different aged trees. So you want to stagger it. So we need to promote and keep and take care of our old growth trees, and we need to be constantly planting more, but not all at once.
We've got 3 questions. You, and then at the back, and then Joe. Go ahead. Did you have a question? No. Did you have a question? No. Okay.
We have one right here. I can't see your name until the first one.
Actually, that's okay, I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
Okay, hi. Thanks for that really wonderful and coherent overview that I haven't really been exposed to before of the issues underlying Measure O. One thing that I see in all the images that are put forward of these utopian new libraries, everybody proposes their own vision of that library. And it feels a bit nostalgic to me because I go to the downtown library a lot, and in the absence of coherent, compassionate social structure to deal with the people who are living in the streets, the library has become a refuge for the drug-addled and the dispossessed. And you go in there and you see security guards who are anxious and uptight and ready for the next explosion. And it seems to me that if we want to do this thing and create this social hub of the library in the way that we imagine it and would like it to be, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, which is that the true function of the library now has become a place of refuge for people who have no other place to go. I don't know many parents who will take their young children to the library now. So it seems to me that if we could in some way address this disparity of people's visions of libraries by saying, and if we save this massive amount of money, could we not create some parallel place where these people can have a place to go so they don't become denizens of the library and drive the very people away? The new library that they're proposing has a roof garden, which seems to me completely ridiculous. How are you going to govern that in terms of security when you've got all these different areas and long spaces that can't be controlled or at least overviewed? So I guess the question I'm asking, is there any way this late in the day, without confusing everybody, to say, because the reality of the library is very different to the libraries that are being proposed now. And those libraries, if they are realized, will be very different to the way that I think they're being imagined because of the social circumstances that will inevitably be there. since we're not addressing them. Can any of that money that we're saving if we go with renovating the old library be channeled towards creating some kind of buffer zones so that the library itself, where the children and the people go, can be separated from a place where other people can go when they're not feeling well, or where there can be, you know, a little coffee shop place for them, or a place they can have shelter and sit that is separated and doesn't drive people away.
Okay.
That is a really tough question. And I think that to answer it, we would really, as a community, have to look at what have other communities done that have similar challenges. And I think that the ones that are successful, just give one example, they don't shut down public restrooms in other public buildings that then drive people who actually need restrooms and a place to go into facilities like the library. And a quick example is that the London Nelson is a publicly owned facility. Used to have open public restrooms that people did depend on. They have shut those restrooms to the public. So there's a lot of things at play here that, you know, we need to do better problem solving as a community to make sure everyone's safe and taken care of.
The other...
May I? About the library.
Sure.
The speaker, when I heard this speaker talk about the library, I was thinking of the library 4 or 5 years ago. And I think there's been changes in the policy. When I go in the library now, it's a much calmer place, and they've changed their policies, and I think it's better than it was. I just wanted to say
Okay, so this is a huge topic. I think one quick answer to you is that Measure O simply does what it does. It can't do everything, but it provides a foundation on which we move forward. So we're faced with a choice. Do we move forward with Measure O, renovation, or with the 8-story structure on Lot 7? And obviously homelessness is an urgent question, and we need to deal with it. And, you know, for us, with Measure O, the question is, do we deal with it in relation to renovating the library, or do we deal with it in relation to building a parking structure with affordable housing on top of it and building a new library? We just have 3 minutes left, and we have 3 questions. Mike and Joe and Amy and Lonnie, we have 4 questions. Maybe if each person states the question, and then we can see where we're at.
I'll try to
be brief.
I've long been curious about how this sort of public and private partnership would work. I mean, the parking space, or parking lot now is publicly owned, library is publicly owned. This new structure will be sort of a combination of privately owned things and publicly owned things.
Yeah.
Public will still own the library and parking structure, but
okay, I got that
how is
question.
that going to be managed? I mean,
Okay, I got that question. Okay, all right. Joe?
Yeah, first of all, great presentations, you guys. Quick question, we see the claim that parking demand is going down. Why is that? And I wasn't totally convinced by the graph. I mean, I can see that one dip that brought it to a bigger difference than it had been, but it seems like it's tracking along, not
Okay.
a
All right.
great decline right now. So
Good
what's
point.
going on?
And Amy?
The biggest argument is for the affordable housing quickly. That's like a huge force when people are arguing against this measure. And it's hard to argue against that because we are in a housing crisis, as we all know. So, but you're saying that the estimate for 2024 is not, you think that they're fudging all of this, is what I'm picking up. And that because of the funding, we're not going to be breaking ground by 2024. Is that correct?
That's correct. If you've ever done construction or been involved in construction timelines, they keep receding. It's like heading toward an oasis and across the desert.
Okay.
Very optimistic.
As the more complicated the project is, like this just housing versus housing with the library, the housing underneath the giant parking structure, commercial. I mean, it becomes more and more complicated, and it pushes the overall finish date further into the future. So like move-in ready, you know, maybe it could be permitted faster, but is it going to be move-in ready?
Lonnie?
Yeah, I'm not a question. I just want to say I don't have the years of canvassing that Pauline, and I'm sorry I don't remember your name, but I worked on Measure D, as you, fighting Measure D, as you know, that we really won that. I cannot emphasize enough the face-to-face is really critical. Get in front of as many people as possible, have your 30-second, your 1 minute, your 2 minute, and then some people want to know a lot more details. I also want to suggest that the video produced today by Nyanko get it in front of as many people as possible, because we did that. We did videos, and it really resonates. People are very visual, and when they see it and they hear it and they hear the whole thing, it just really cements it. So I'm hoping Nyanko will get it out to you all and just tell people to share it and make it go wild.
Okay, Lee, last question.
It's more a comment. I have been listening to this term affordable housing for a long time. As a builder of 40 years experience, I would like to suggest that Lee Butler and the planning department say affordable housing and the community hears, I can move in. But what Lee Butler and the planning department really means is it's affordable to build. The hell with whether you can afford to live there.
All right, thank you for that. I want to circle back both to Mike and to Joe. Joe, look at that graph. The highest point of demand for parking in that entire graph was what year? 2008, 14 years ago. So,
it wasn't much of a decline since then.
Pardon?
It wasn't very much of a decline since then.
No, but on average, there's no point where it's been higher than in demand than 2008.
And just to add to that, also the supply line is about 1,500 parking spaces available. So even if the demand isn't changing a ton, you know, it's like dipping a little bit, it spikes a little bit, and it dips again. The actual supply is still way beyond.
I don't want to quibble about the graph, but I do at some point, maybe afterwards, want to find out why is the parking demand going down. I mean, that's a good point in our favor, because all the people, the two big hooks of this are the library and hey, more parking, easy parking, and you know, people aren't going to believe us when we tell them parking demand is going down. They're going to say no.
So 2008, Mike, that question is so detailed. I want to talk to you about it. But the short answer is that, and I know this because I've been working on an affordable housing and market rate housing project with a church. And part of the answer is that there are lease agreements between the owner of the land. The city probably would continue to own the land, lease it to the developer for, they tend to be for 55 years or 89 years or something like that. So there are complicated agreements that get put in place for the development to proceed. I just want to thank every one of you for being here. I want to encourage you again, get out there. Anything that inspires you, go ahead and do it. If you feel like you don't know what to do, visit our website, contact us, email us. Thank you, and Lyra maybe has some parting comments as well.
Really looking forward to meet those of you I don't already know, and so get to see all the ones I do know. That's it.